2020 has been a year. I've also been using 2020 ending related intros for like 3 videos now, so let's stop doing that. Today, it's literally what the title says. We're going to talk about 2020 and Vanguard Zero. So Vanguard Zero has been out for just a bit over a year. It came out in Japanese at the beginning of December, but we're going to kind of count that in to this year essentially because it's also reflecting on the 1-year anniversary. And so today I wanted to simply go over the amazing things, the great things, the good things that Vanguard Zero has or has done throughout the year, as well as the bad things that definitely need to be touched up on or improved on throughout the year. And then we're going to kind of talk about going forward 2021, what we could expect, what we could hope for in 2021 that Vanguard Zero could bring to us, hopefully. So we're going to start with the positives, and I want to give a big special thank you to my Twitch chat actually, because one evening I sat down on a stream and kind of went over my pros and cons of this year with my chat, and then they gave me a bunch of ideas as well. So huge thank you to my Twitch community for coming through and actually helping out with this video. So honestly, couldn't have done it without y'all, because some of these points I definitely wouldn't have thought of. But without any further ado, let's get into the positives. So first thing, of course, the most obvious one that everyone's been waiting for years is Vanguard Zero has given us the ability to play Vanguard anywhere, anytime, and just wherever, whenever. So that is honestly, like, even if you're not a fan of Vanguard Zero, because it's not the same as the original Vanguard rules, it is still a way to play some form of Vanguard no matter where you are in the world. Even if you're in a country or in a city or in a town, village, whatever, where Vanguard has never been heard of, there's nobody playing Vanguard in like a 100-mile radius from you, you can still play it on your mobile phone. And that is the amazing part about this, is that even if you're not a fan of it or if you love it, you cannot argue to the fact that finally, at long last, you can play Vanguard wherever you want without relying on unofficial means. So that, I think, is by far the biggest good thing, and, you know, finally, we actually have an online platform for the game. Another good thing that I think they've done quite well this year is effects. So now, I don't mean like the ride animations, because they're just like ripped from the anime, which I get is like a nice thing for nostalgia's sake, but they definitely feel like they're low quality and could be improved. But what I'm talking about is that, first, the visual effects, like when you actually use an effect, like, you know, the Battle Sisters shoot like bullets everywhere, or like the Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark actually like stab the cards and stuff like that. Those visual effects are really, really cool and something that they actually put in effort to, and I think that is very, very nice to see. On top of that, they explore the space of digital, so doing stuff that you cannot do with real cards. For example, using the Ayusha's skill to remove him from the game and out of 4 random cards add 1-dimensional robo to your hand. That's something that you can't really do. Or, you know, the whole thing of like randomly retiring something in the back row. Or just in general, just a lot of these effects that cannot be done physically. And I think that is really, really cool that they actually explore that space, and I hope that we continue to see it into the future, because I think people overall receive it quite positively. On top of that, the buffs and nerfs to cards have been pretty good. You know, usually they buff stuff that needs to be buffed, they nerf stuff that needs to be nerfed. Lately, we've been seeing them nerf a lot of cards that used to be really good when they first came out in the TCG, but they kind of put them already in post-nerf like forms before they even release in Zero, which some people are a little bit iffy on, but some people are like, good, you know, that makes other decks more viable for a longer period of time. And so, you know, it's a mixed bag, but overall the meta is healthy. Usually it's quite diverse. Even if we have like 2 or 3 decks in tier 1, the tier 2 decks are usually still really, really strong and are able to still put up a great fight in tournaments, as we've seen from like Vanguard Zero Championships, having like Spike Rose and Novas in the finals pretty frequently now. Another positive thing is collabs. You know, I'm personally not really a fan, or I guess I don't go out of my way to look for HoloLive stuff, but, you know, I see the occasional clip on Twitter, but that is a really good collab idea. You know, overall, just having collabs like that for the game is really good. It brings new people into the game. They had the Review Starlight collab as well, and I hope that they explore more different collabs into the future as well, not just HoloLive, but also, you know, other franchises. You know, Grand Blue Fantasy is like the dream, where they collab with, like, you know, Demon Slayer and Code Geass and like all those kind of other anime titles. So hopefully we see Vanguard Zero collab with more interesting titles into the future, and maybe even with other digital card games, which would be really cool to see. Now, this is also a very important one, is that Zero offers an easy entry point into Vanguard as a whole. Not just TCG, not just Zero, but as a whole. Whether you're just getting into Zero for the sake of playing Zero, or if you're getting into Zero and then later down the line you're like, actually, I wonder what the card game is like, you know, and you actually get into the actual physical card game, I think that Zero is an amazing entry point for the game. It teaches the game really easily, it's pretty straightforward, and overall it's just a great like way to actually get into Vanguard, and I think that on its own needs to be appreciated for sure. A really nice change that they made throughout this year was that they finally separated the gacha. This was a complaint that I had when I was reviewing the game after like 3 months or something after it had been out, was that they finally started doing separate gacha banners as they always should have been, and now every time a new gacha releases, that is actually separate from the other ones that came out before it. So I think that is obviously, honestly, should have been in the game from day one, but it's nice that at least we finally got to it at this point. On top of that, they basically made a pattern of having some sort of sparking every single month. So if you don't know what sparking is, it basically means you pull a certain amount of packs, you get some tokens, and you can exchange those tokens for a specific card that you want. So whether it's like SPs or triple rares or double rares, or right now they have an interesting one that they're, as I said, they're like innovating with the sparking. They have one coming up where if you there's new support for existing clans like DP and Aquaforce, etc., and they're making a deck build gacha where you can basically pull the important cards for those clans, not from that set, but from previous sets. So you don't have to roll the earlier gachas, you don't have to craft the older cards, and you can just pull them from that gacha instead, and you can spark them too. So that's honestly a really cool system, and I'm glad they're innovating with that as well. Another super important positive is that communities are being created. Whether it's Reddit, Discord, Facebook, Twitter, there are plenty of communities that are just coming to life, and people are making friend groups, people are getting to know other people, finding other people in their country that like Vanguard as well, and getting to know them in person. I feel like Vanguard, as a TCG was a communication tool, but Zero is showing to be the same in its ability to make communities, and I think that is a very important plus point to be considering as well. Now, this is a bit more of a personal one, but streaming became a thing for Vanguard at long last. I've attempted streaming with Vanguard when EX came out, but if you wanted to stream the regular Vanguard TCG, you would always be relying on like remote fight or tabletop, and there wasn't really like a need for it. Nobody was looking for it. If like me or some other Vanguard YouTubers were streaming, some people would tune in, but now it's really become a thing where people can get into Vanguard content creation without having a YouTube channel. They don't have to make videos at all. They can just be live on Twitch and they will have their own little community, and I think that is really important because that means that more people can get into content creation, can get more people into the game as a result of it, and they don't have to rely on just making YouTube videos, which was the case until this year basically, and that I think is a really good thing. Now, the story, the actual in-game story is pretty good, just to reenact the entire anime storyline, and it gives you some fights. They also explored like the special rules and stuff like that, and they use it to preview cards coming out in the future, which I think is a really nice bonus. And on top of that, the events that they do, both the seasonal events and the clan events, they add a little extra fluff to the story as well, because you essentially get a little bit of an extra added on top of what you already know from the anime. So even if you know everything from the anime, you still get a little bit of an extra storyline added on top of everything else, and I think that for a lot of people that is quite appreciated, to be honest, and I myself appreciate it too because I am a big fan of the Vanguard anime in itself. And I think we have to keep in mind the fact that not everyone that plays Vanguard or Vanguard Zero is necessarily like a tryhard that always plays on ranked, always goes to tournaments. There are plenty of Vanguard fans that just watch the anime and don't actually play with the cards, so for them that is also a very important thing, and that's kind of like the my room function as well, as like for the people that don't actually play the card game but they just like to do other stuff. Another good thing that only Global did, but I think it's still worth mentioning, is that the rewards were expanded to top 3,000. I think that's a really good move. I hope JP does it eventually too, and I think overall it's just really nice that they implemented that kind of system, and it's nice to see them kind of always be willing to respond to people's kind of problems and issues with the game over time. On top of that, they changed the character fight requirements to now no longer need like just the 4 damage or less, but now it can also be like within X number of turns. I think that's also a very welcome addition that makes the game a little bit less of a pain in the ass sometimes. Now, this is one that I kind of discussed with my Twitch channel, and with my Twitch chat, was about how short the ranked seasons are. They're only 2 weeks, whereas in a lot of other online card games, they're like 3 months or 1 month at least. But a lot of people were happy with how short they are because you get so many rewards and it's so easy to climb. It's not the fact that you can climb for days and then lose all your progress by just having one unlucky streak. No matter how unlucky you are, the worst is you won't move 1 legend, but then you can still get out of that legend with like 3 wins basically, and so it's pretty nice for that reason alone. And I think that it's, even though they're very short and it makes it a bit time consuming if you want to get to the top of a single rank season, but even then you'll need to like commit 2 weeks of your time or your extra free time to do that, and so the short seasons kind of make it a bit better to sort of maneuver the ranked scape of the game. The 6-month anniversary was very good. So the 6-month anniversary got us a bunch of free stuff. They had all kinds of like really cool things going on in general, and it felt like it was just a really festive time for the game. And especially for a half-year anniversary, they were especially generous too, and they were doing a lot of cool free stuff and giveaways and just in general like cool game modes, which felt lacking from the first-year anniversary, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Another nice thing, speaking of fluff, is that they added voice lines to a lot of cards that never appeared in the anime. So, you know, like Dungaree having voice lines and stuff like that is like, they never appeared in the anime, but they still add them, and they still do it to this day, you know. Plenty of grade 3 boss units that aren't never showed themselves in the anime, but plenty of random anime characters have voice lines for them, and I think that that is really cool that they're still kind of doing that in sort of post-production almost with those cards too. I think Zero also gives us the ability to revisit old decks from the past that we never played, or also decks that we played in the past that we feel particularly nostalgic for, and so giving us that opportunity that even Standard doesn't really give you. It's like sure, you can play a clan you never played, but it doesn't play the exact same as it did in the past, whereas Zero gives you that opportunity to play a deck that will play the same as it did in the past that maybe you missed out on. Maybe you were just like a high school student, you couldn't afford to build more decks, or you just like, you know, you want to play the deck that you used to play with and climb with and like, you know, go to tournaments with back in the day, and so now you can play it again in Zero, and I think that that is an important thing as well. New art. This was the one that surprised me the most that we got this year quite a lot of. You know, they weren't just rehashing old art all the time, but they were willing to make new art for the rank rewards. We saw this with the Starlight Trumpeter first, or Star Cold Trumpeter, sorry, first, and then they kept exploring it with like Alice and stuff like that. Some of them became TCG releases eventually, you know, for the V series, but then quite a few of them never did, and they are just there to be Zero exclusives, and I think that's really cool. That also kind of tells us that, you know, if Zero ever does catch up with the actual Vanguard, and for like, I don't know, if they choose to not go the overdress route or whatever, they could easily like just make their own cards. They can make their own cards with original art, original effects and everything, and I think not that many people would complain, but they're not going to run out of cards to cover for a very long time, so I'm sure that, you know, eventually maybe Zero will just become a simulation for the actual TCG, and that'll be pretty cool in its own right. I already mentioned this one a little bit earlier, but Bushiroad is overall willing to listen and improve. You know, whenever people were really vocal about a thing they didn't like, or a bad meta, or some functions that needed to be added, or, you know, like the whole VP question, I don't want to get into it right now, but Bushiroad was willing to adapt and listen to what the community wanted, and overall usually pulled through with what the community actually asked for. Some other nice things from my personal side, they did the Content Creator Invitational for Global Zero in the summer, which I think was really, really cool, and on top of that we got the Anime Expo panel as well, which was really nice to do, and on top of that they do all the nice social media campaigns of like free sleeves, or like free this, or free packs, etc. So I think that that is also a nice thing that they can only really do with Zero, because how easy it is to just inject free stuff into the game. Alright, so that was the positives, and that was actually quite a lot. Like, we spent quite some time talking about just the positives of Vanguard Zero, but now let's talk about the negatives, the things that they kind of messed up on, or they could be doing better jobs with, or things that they could improve in the future. First things first, I'm gonna just shoot this one right away. The 1-year anniversary. The 1-year anniversary felt underwhelming is probably the best way to put it. So, you know, we got free stuff, and we got those anniversary packs, which gave us like older cards and like staples for other clans, but that was sort of the extent of it. They gave us like the rank fight week, and they added teams as a function, and those were all cool things, but I think a lot of us expected more. I think we expected a new game mode, which looks like we're gonna get a new game mode, but they could have announced that with the 1-year anniversary, that they're at least planning to do those kind of things. And on top of that, a lot of people were hoping for more like actual game changes, you know, whether it's a UI change, maybe that's gonna happen in Zero, you know, more background music, playmats, all those kind of like small little things that don't seem like such a big thing, but are enough to get people excited about. And I think that the 1-year anniversary, you know, in other mobile games usually is a much bigger deal. You know, they really go crazy for 1 or 2 or 3-year anniversaries, and just like, you know, really show the community like, thank you for letting our game live for a year, because a lot of mobile games, they don't live that long. You know, it's really easy for them to get discontinued. The moment that the money isn't really rolling through as much, they, you know, just plug them. And I think it's a big deal for a mobile game to last for a year, and I feel like that Bushiroad and Game Studio should have been a little bit more thankful for that as well. But, you know, there's always like time to improve in the coming years, and for Global's 1-year anniversary, hopefully they do a little bit more, knowing that people on the Japanese side weren't all that happy. Now, this is not necessarily a negative or a positive, but the My Room, while it's cool that it exists, they do not do much with it. Like, there are things that they could be doing with the My Room, and it just never is much. Like, they just give out items. Sometimes they do like a contest of like whose room is prettiest to get some gems on their Twitter or on their, like, you know, streams and stuff, but they could really be doing more. Like, they could add a jukebox to it where you can actually like buy music in the My Room using the My Room coins that then plays like in the menu, music that plays in battle and stuff like that. There's plenty of stuff you could do with My Room without actually abolishing it, but it feels like they just don't really do much with it. And now for Global, there are some really big negatives that we need to talk about. One thing was the Bermuda Triangle promo that we got for the Bermuda Cup for free in the Japanese server that for some reason Global players had to pay for. You know, they had to basically open packs, and like for every amount of open packs they got it. That is terrible, because why did Japan get it for free? You know, I'm not even a Global player, but why did Japan get it for free and Global had to like pay for it, basically? That felt like a big problem, and I'm not sure why they decided to monetize it like that, but hopefully that isn't a sign of things to come, because that is definitely yikes. But the biggest yikes factor for Global is the lack of actual tournaments. So at the beginning of the Global server, Pro Play Games was organizing the sort of Zero Championship for Global, but even that was organized in questionable ways, and people definitely felt like it was kind of subpar compared to the way that Japan was doing things, and now they're not even doing anything with it anymore. There's no Zero Championship Global going on, and all the big tournaments are done at a grassroots level by people like Shirayasha, who's like putting in like $400 for a prize pool for a tournament, and you know, that's like hopefully enough to attract people. But the official Game Studio or Bushiroad aren't actually doing much with it, and that feels like the biggest issue. People can't get excited about actually tryharding outside of grinding ranked, which is tiresome and annoying, you know, when they can't even show their medal in a tournament, you know, which is where a lot of like expertise in card games actually comes to shine, because ladder is all about how much time you have, not necessarily how good you are at a game, as long as you're above average. Now, this is a pretty big one, which is return on investment for casual players, and not return on investment in terms of money, because it's a mobile game and, you know, it's optional to pay in, but more specifically time. You really have to put in a lot of time into Zero to climb really far, and all you really get for climbing far in Global especially is some cards in SP and an emblem and a little thing for your room. You know, in games like Shadowverse, you know, other games that I play, if you get to even like the upper division, the highest division of the ladder, so let's say if there was like Legend and then like Great Legend or something after that, then you get special sleeves and a little emblem for your profile. And those special sleeves are like cool because you can show off to the world that you got that far on the ranked ladder. And there isn't, you know, just like a Legend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you know, etc., which is what we have in Zero. So it feels like, you know, you spend all this time grinding away in Global. At least in JP, if you get to top 30, you get invited to that season's top tournament, but otherwise it just doesn't feel really that worth it. And that is already like the top 30 is the sweatiest players, the ones that are going the hardest and putting all their time into the game. But if you're a casual player, it's like, what do you even have time, like what reason do you have to put your time into the game, you know, just to get some gems from ladder, just to then pull more cards? What are you pulling those cards for? Just to keep playing them? You know, it is fun to play the game, but it feels like you need more reasons for that time investment that you're putting into the game that you could be spending on other things too, such as playing the actual TCG itself. Lack of event diversity. This is something that they might be solving now. We don't know for sure until a couple more days, but they are this year in 2020. So 2021, it might be different. I hope it's different, but 2020 was boring as hell in terms of events. You had clan events, you had seasonal events with the dice, and then you had collabs, which usually just said, get X amount of VP, play X amount of times of ranked, you know, do this and that. And it's just like, this isn't how you do these kind of events. Again, I'm going to bring up Shadowverse because I feel like that's one of the best built CCGs, like online card games. When they do events, they do stuff like random drops from ranked. So just by playing ranked, suddenly you'll get a treasure chest and you get like a foil card or something, or like a promo card that is only out during that time. They could have distributed the Bermuda card like that, you know? Or things like you have to challenge the CPU, and the CPU uses like illegal decks full of like cards from different clans, and it's like a weird gimmick extreme fight deck, and you have to beat them. And then if you beat them, you get like special sleeves or special promos or more packs, you know, and things like that. You don't want to be just like grinding against the CPU, against like, you know, just a half-baked CPU that barely knows what they're doing, whereas you could be doing more interesting things, you know. And I feel like the events are just very boring. It's very boring. Clan events, I'm going to talk about that a bit later, but luckily it looks like they're kind of experimenting with new stuff, and they are doing an AI mode, and they're doing an AI challenge mode, and I'm going to talk more about it when we get into January, but hopefully this is the beginning of a change, because the events in this game are boring as hell, and events are literally what carries a mobile game. So keep that in mind, Bushiroad and Game Studio. Please keep that in mind. This one is one that I've been complaining about since basically day one: lack of non-competitive modes. Again, this is something that they look to be addressing because they added a CPU battle mode that actually gives you VP as well without using stamina. But what I'm really asking for is stuff that isn't just the constructed format. You know, plenty of people love draft. You know, they love to open packs, choose cards from those packs, you know, and then build a deck just out of those packs. Maybe you get to keep some of those cards, maybe not, but you get rewards from like playing in those draft modes and like winning 5 games in a row and stuff like that. And that usually in a lot of other digital card games, playing those draft modes helps you to get your cards and helps you to get the in-game currency and helps free-to-play players stay afloat. And I think that missing that from this game, just, I don't know, it's an unexplored territory. And the TCG itself has draft, you know, the TCG itself has a draft game mode that is played in sneak peeks, so it's like, why are we missing this? On top of that, they've shown us in the story that they are willing to have special rules, such as like, you know, games go to 8 damage, or your rear guards do drive checks and stuff like that. They could easily explore that space, but they're just choosing not to, and I really hope that in 2021 they do. And also just a casual ladder mode, please, like not having to play rank fight all the time and, you know, like having the stress of like going up and down a legend, or, you know, being at like 95 points and then losing a few games because you wanted to play with a more fun deck. Having a casual versus mode where you can just like play against people, but just like bring any random deck you want without having to like play competitive all the time would also be really great. I already complained about this, but no playmats feels really weird. There isn't like, there's very few digital card games that I play where you cannot choose a playmat, and it's basically just, I think, Hearthstone and Shadowverse, where you can't actually buy playmats, but at least they do like different designs of the background that like change depending on you know, just depending on the game. But then, you know, games like Legends of Runeterra, Duel Masters Plays, you know, those games, even Duel Links, you know, they give playmats for like specific events or like world championships or other stuff like that, and people love playmats. You know, it's such an easy thing. Like, you have a billion different kinds of sleeves, playmats will just add, like, you can put every single playmat under a paycheck, like $2 or something, or $3, people will pay for it. It's literally an easy way to monetize your game. Just do it. I teased this earlier, but clan events are weird, and they're supposed to be like free to play, approachable, you know, like, oh, you can build this clan that isn't very popular without even like going into the gacha, but actually if you want to complete it, you gotta get insanely lucky, because that's to go through, not just you gotta get lucky drops from character fights, then you gotta get lucky drops from actually doing the clan fight in the clan event, and then you gotta get lucky from the actual pull. So like, why do you have to get lucky 3 times when in the gacha you gotta get lucky once by just opening those damn packs? So it's like, it's such a weird mode. It could be improved in so many ways, and it just feels like this needs to be changed. This needs to be changed like ASAP, because the way it is now is just like, people are always missing stuff, and the fact that they're not even in the regular character fights, like, for crying out loud, at least add them to the character fights so people can grind the materials afterwards. What are you missing? What are you losing out on? Do you think people won't do the clan fights and just like grind materials to craft the cards day one? Sure, there will be some people like that, but it's not like, I don't know, do you gain that much money from clan fights? Do people really put in this like 10,000 yen just to grind in a clan event? I don't know, man, but it's a very ancient system that they're using for it, and I really don't like it. I think a lot of people will raise this one as well. Now, another thing that they're trying to address, but it still feels kind of half-baked, is the fact that it's hard to re-enter the game after a break. You know, if you play this game every day, you get gems, you get packs, you get all this kind of stuff, you get cards, and you're always like, your kind of in-game economy is always flourishing. But if you don't play the game for 2 months, it's like, well, I guess you gotta build one of the newest decks, because probably your older stuff is good, but the support that came out for it probably came out a couple of months ago, and like, it's not on rate up anymore and all that kind of stuff. At least the gacha still exists because it's split now, but even then it's like, it's pretty hard to re-enter after a break. At least now they're like introducing the like deck build gacha where you can actually essentially just like pull the old staples, but you know, that's a move in the right direction, but please do more of that. Like, at least they also added like the fact that if you don't play for a few months, you get like 100 packs. That is also nice, but I feel like that 3-month gap or whatever they said for it is also pretty harsh, so I don't know. You can't make it too little, but at the same time, it might be a bit too far at this time. I already mentioned this before, but the in-game BGM is stale and it's getting boring. I pray that by the time we get to G, where the soundtrack is completely revamped, that we actually get a different soundtrack in game 2. If we don't, I will actually riot. And now I can actually say this for both JP and Global, but there is no PC client. We are over a year into the game and our PC client for JP is dead. I hope that they're making another one. And why is this game not on Steam yet when Duel Links is? You know, there's no excuse. I think it shouldn't be that hard to get it onto Steam. They managed to get Cardfight Online on Steam, you know, way back when. We had to greenlit. You had to get greenlit to actually be on Steam, so why not just do it again? The community will definitely come through, so put that shit on Steam, please. This is a big one, and I feel like this is, you know, not just with Zero, but with Bushiroad in general, but there is a lack of future transparency. Although they are improving, you know, they did tell us like, oh, Legion is coming in soon, but there's lack of future transparency. Like, we don't really know what's gonna get buffed or nerfed. They don't give us like a 2 weeks heads up or whatever, like they do with the TCG, or a week of heads up. You know, they just go like, you wake up one morning, oh, here's a bunch of buffs and nerfs. And it's just like, I remember when the game started in Japanese, we didn't even know if V medals expires. A lot of people, like myself included, just spent all their V medals before we rolled over to the next month because we thought they expire. And lo and behold, they don't. But we didn't know that because they're not transparent enough with their communication. And it feels like they're just like, they're getting better at least announcing the sets, you know, and letting us know that like, oh, this set is coming in 2 weeks. But, you know, sometimes they really drag it on until like the last week. And please, like, I understand you're building up hype, but please a bit more transparency. You know, I think that at least that much is appreciated. This is a pretty big one. What happened to Rental Fight? I don't know if in Global you guys lost it already, but in JP, Rental Fight doesn't exist anymore. You know, you can still like, when you put in non-existing cards into your deck, it still gives you like that estimated Rental Fight cost, but they just removed it. It's just gone. It's not there anymore. So it's like, if you want to test decks, it's not there. You just can't. You have to do challenge fight and that's it. It's like, why did you remove it without saying anything? Like, what was the reason? Did you not make enough money? Like, what's going on here? It felt like such a random thing to remove, and it was actually a thing that people appreciated, so it's like, why? Character fight drop rates. Now, you know, in Global they started doing things differently with the like guaranteed character fight drop rates, but even then, why are they so low? It just feels like such a strange thing where the only crafting currency, like the entire crafting system in the game, is something that needs to be revamped completely. Like, why is there no one general currency for cards? Why can you only dust your SPs? Why can't you destroy any card you want? Why can't you destroy your like dud triple rares that you don't want? Why can't you destroy your double rares? Like, why can't you just like have a functioning crafting currency in your game? Look at any other digital TCG, barring like Duel Links. You can destroy any card you want and you can craft any card you want. It is ridiculous that this crafting system is so ancient. It is ridiculous. And it's like, sure, I understand if you're just interested in one or two clans, it doesn't really hurt you, but even then, it's like, it would be so much easier if you're pulling for just one or two clans, you could kill all the other stuff from the clans you don't want and just focus on that one clan that you do want. Because it's like, I don't understand why this system is in place. Crafting is like, I'm glad it exists in the first place. It's not like Duel Links, but god damn, like, you cannot be doing 24 different crafting currencies. And like, at the very least in the future, I feel like they should just like generalize them to be like nation based or something. Like, if you're gonna keep exclusivity, at the very least make it nation based. Like, do away with the clan based currencies, because it's so much time investment. You have to build, you have to think about what you're going to build like 3 or 4 months in advance. Otherwise you won't have the crafting materials ready for when those cards actually release, and that is stupid. That is crazy, and it rewards whaling, and it's not casual player friendly either. And the final negative point before we get on to the exclusively things to improve for the future is the trial decks are a joke. These trial decks, I don't know what they were thinking with them. SP starters are interesting, but they're already outdated, and they don't really offer much. Like, why would you pay 12 bucks for something where you just get one of a triple rare? Like, even IRL trial decks are better than this. For IRL trial decks of the TCG, you buy one, you have everything you need. Like, why do you have to buy 4 of these? Like, it's ridiculous. Do you understand that your own TCG is doing better than you virtually? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous and needs to be changed. And I think that that is like, just, it blows my mind that they even try to get away with this. All right, I feel very, very like heated right now, so let's talk about some things to improve for in the future. Alright, so first thing, the UI feels a little bit ancient, and I hope that when we go to G, they use the G update as, you know, we're going to a new generation of the game, and this is the time to change up a lot of stuff. The UI needs to be changed. It just feels like it's very clunky. It still doesn't feel that clean compared to other games that you can play on the market, and, you know, it's like, sure, you have people that are nostalgic for Vanguard playing the game, but it's like, is that really enough? I feel like you should be trying to push for the general audience too, and the UI right now is not really going to attract too many people when they have games like Dragalia Lost to play with, you know? So I really don't think that that is, you know, something that they should be too complacent about. This is a small thing, but stamina refills should refill your entire stamina, not just 75. You know, I understand for the sake of calculations, it's like whatever that is 75, but with the stamina bar expanding with every big update, I feel like it's about damn time that they make it so that the stamina refill actually gives you the entire stamina. Like, people would be more willing to refill their stamina because they get so much more out of it and they can craft cards better. So I think that's such a straightforward thing and very easy to comprehend. Sure, maybe they lose money in the long term because people aren't refilling stamina as much, but if one stamina refill gets me so many more cards, I would probably be willing to do it more often too. So that's just, I think that's a pretty obvious thing that other card games and other mobile games do as well. The login rewards and VP still give irrelevant materials. I'm talking about the crafting, the default crafting currency. I'm talking about the My Room Premium and My Room regular coins. This stuff, you don't do anything with it. It is absolutely useless and nobody really cares about it. And, you know, other games, they give you materials that are actually relevant, you know, materials that actually give you stuff like, you know, good crafting materials, like triple rare materials. Imagine if that dropped from random events or like login bonus or VP farming, etc. You know, like take for example, 1 month we have like 5 different clans being supported, and for those 5 clans, for that month of VP, you get that triple rare crafting material. Maybe just like 10 of each at a time, but I think that people would appreciate that way more than whatever the hell we're getting now that isn't packs and gems. Now this one I understand is a little bit difficult to do purely because, you know, the game first updates in Japanese and then updates in English, but I feel like even for the Japanese side, content creators should be allowed to do at least some of the reveals. I mean, look at any other CCG like Shadowverse, Hearthstone, MTG, like there are content creators doing, you know, reveals all the time for these games, and I'm glad that at least for the TCG this year we got to do you know, premium collection reveals on the English side. But I feel like, you know, they could at least be letting some Japanese content creators do reveals for the Japanese cards, and maybe hell, even doing some on the English side too. That would definitely be really appreciated. I feel like it adds a little bit of extra hype to the game as well. And then again, we talked about this earlier, but the events are lazy and need to be improved, but looks like they are making some improvements, but I hope they continue to explore more different ones. You know, I talked about earlier how like Shadowverse does events, and I think that that definitely is at least some kind of idea on what other spaces they can explore. I think also the grind should be reduced. You know, like I feel like the whole legend system that they have where like, you know, climbing to X legend gets you X amount of cards and gems, etc. needs to be kind of redone, and they should instead maybe change the daily rewards. Again, this is kind of ripping from Shadowverse and Hearthstone and Runeterra, but there you have like specific dailies of like play with a certain clan, do a certain thing, and you get X amount of gems per day. And I feel like that would be a better system than to incentivize like, okay, wake up and grind, you know? I feel like that's a better way to also make it so that the casual players actually enjoy the game, or at the very least add that kind of system and keep the current one if the current, you know, the competitive players like it. But at least for the casual players, you kind of incentivize them to play a little bit per day, but not go, you know, feeling like they have to play all the time or not play at all to not get the rewards. Jukebox I talked about, you know, add more music to the game. Just please add more music to the game. The current BGM is getting really, really dry, and we definitely deserve at least something new. I also think that they should copy something that not every other, but a lot of other CCGs and gacha games have, which is that if you open 10 packs, at least make it so that you have a double rare confirmed, like guaranteed at least 1 double rare per 10 packs. That incentivizes people to save up a little bit, and also at least makes it so that you can't get completely royally punished with bad luck when you're opening 10 packs and you pull just rares. You know, it definitely happens to you and me, and like I feel like at the very least they could make it so that you get at least a double rare from 10 packs. That would be nice. More ways to get V medals. You know, tournaments give them out as well now, but maybe add them to the events as well, because, you know, V medals with all the sparking, like where most of us are really dry and we can't even pick up the skins anymore. So I feel like that would be nice to actually help us, you know, pick up all these different skins that they're releasing all the time, because they are cool and a lot of people do want them, but it's just like, well, there's not much to do with it. So hopefully they add more ways to get V medals rather than just opening packs and doing, you know, entering tournament mode. I would like also a more competent reporting system. So when somebody cheats or hacks or whatever, this is really a thing in JP, but in global, it has been an issue. It's very cumbersome to actually report someone, and so please make it a bit more straightforward to actually make reports. You know, just after a match, make a little window where you can actually press report and report someone. You know, I don't think it'll be abused that much, and it's just something that is already in other games. Also, match replay. I feel like that's something that's really missing, but, you know, just like record the most recent 10 matches, you know, save them in the game's database and let us rewatch it. You know, that's a great way for players to learn from their misplays and learn from their own games, you know, analyze them. We can then have like content creators doing like analysis of people's games and like top 10 highlights or whatever of the week. You know, this opens so many ideas for the community as well, and I feel like it's a pretty basic feature that they could implement. You know, even the most like 5 most recent games would be enough. You know, at least having some form of match replay so you can show your cool plays to your friends by just going back and rewatching that game. And I feel like this should be added eventually. Also, the ability to view your opponent's deck after the fight finishes. I think this is something that is in a lot of other card games. And you know, you finish the game and, you know, win or lose, you just click on a button and you see your opponent's deck. And that's it. Nothing too complex, but it's cool to be able to explore other ideas from other players. And also, you see a really cool deck on ladder and you get to copy it and then just play with it yourself. And finally, this is my personal one that maybe isn't really possible for Vanguard Zero, but I would love any card game to do this, which is a lobby system. So just a lobby where you have like your little avatar and you can move around and then you can like interact and actually talk to people in a chat. At least we have a team function where we can like chat with our teammates now in Zero, but it would be cool to have a lobby function where you can like walk around and talk to people and then sit down by a table and actually play a match. So I think that would add a little extra layer of communication to the game, and it would, you know, that's kind of like what I'm getting from fighting games like Grand Blue Versus, where you can go into a lobby, there's a bunch of cabs, and then you can like talk to people in between games, like you can spam emotes, you know, and like you can do little dances and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that would make it so that the game is a little bit more exciting in terms of like a communication tool, because that's what card games really are, is they are communication tools, and not having any form of chatting in the game just kind of removes that. Although I know the good parts of it, I feel like it is kind of missing in my opinion. And that is it. Oof, this actually took a really long time, but that summarizes all the pros and cons and points for improvement for Vanguard Zero from 2020. So hopefully I managed to go over almost everything, but if you have more ideas, or if you think some of my ideas, you know, maybe aren't too correct, maybe they could be kind of done in a better way, feel free to leave them in the comments and let me know your ideas as well. Which points do you agree with? Which ones do you not? What else you would add? I would love to hear it, and hopefully we can have a discussion in the comments. And hey, hopefully Game Studio and Bushra would see this video and actually make some improvements, because I think a lot of us are hoping for that. Alright, but on that note, I've been recording for almost an hour. I think that's going to be enough for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy New Year, everyone. I'll see you for 2021. Thank you so much for being cool this year and for hanging out. You know, it's been a difficult year for all of us, but I'm really glad that I got to spend it with you guys. And you know, my channel wouldn't be the same without everyone coming through and without Vanguard Zero existing, so I am definitely very thankful for the game's existence and for you guys for coming through and watching my videos every single time. And hopefully 2021 will be even better than before. But on that note, that's going to be it for me today. Don't forget tomorrow to tune in. I'll be opening 400 plus packs of set 14 for SP Daikaisers. Come through, celebrate the new year together with us, and hopefully have a great time. But on that note, that'll be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.